Off the grid living. That sounds more enticing with each passing day, especially in the crazy political times we live in. And even with the advent of Starlink, makes it easier than ever, especially the work from home types. They can get along a lot easier living off the grid, or at least so it would seem. The city dwellers, they probably don't exactly know how difficult it probably can really be living off the grid. I mean, myself included. Like when I was a kid, we had a campsite off of Raccoon Lake in Indiana that I used to go to every weekend. We'd spend the summers there. Sometimes I'd spend over a week there, a couple of weeks, and it was a good time. And we lived in a couple of trailers and we didn't have power. I mean, I think we had gas that we used as power, something like that. I don't know. All I know is the trailer that the kids were in had no power. And we weren't allowed in the parents' trailer because it was much nicer and they wanted to keep it in nicer shape. Plus, they were hiding all the goodies, all the treats, all the desserts, and all that stuff. But yeah, we had the campfire in the center and did I guess it wasn't technically primitive camping, and that's more of just living in tents, although I did plenty of that too. I remember in sixth grade with my church, we went on a 6-day hiking trip in Red River Gorge in Kentucky. Hiked all the way around it, 23 miles up and down foothills. First day I went there, it was pouring down rain the entire day. Second day, it poured down rain for most of that day. So we had to set up our tents, everything in the pouring rain. And it was just maybe 15 or 20 of us around sixth grade age, 12, 13 years old. And then a couple of the adult leaders. And that was it. We were out there in the wilderness for a week trying to hike all the way around Red River Gorge. And we got all the way around it, something like 23 miles. Probably one of the best weeks that I can remember having as a preteen, teenager, childhood. Just being out in the woods. I've always loved being out in the woods. But I'm pretty far away from that now, living in St. Petersburg, right in the middle of Tampa Bay. I think in any direction that I hop in my car and drive, it's at least an hour until I get out of the city. Whether if I go north, south, or east, obviously can't go west. So, but yeah, man, I came across this article. I haven't even read it yet. It came out from the New York Post about 3 hours ago. Off-grid living. Next new real estate trend as applications for rural mortgages skyrocket. Thought this would be an interesting read, which I haven't seen. Okay, that has nothing to do with it. So the idea of living off the grid, once the domain of hippies and doomsday preppers, has been steadily winning over a broader range of home buyers, from remote working young professionals to families pursuing a back-to-basics lifestyle. Yeah, it might sound fun at first, but I have a feeling most, especially maybe younger, newlywed married couples, they want to try living off the grid. If they lived in the city their whole lives, they're probably going to get a rude awakening as to how, maybe not difficult, that's probably not the right way to put it, but how frustrating and stressful it can actually be. It's not just constantly living in a peaceful utopia. There's like where to go to the bathroom, how to take a shower, stuff like just the basic stuff that a lot of people just take advantage of today. Simply just walking into a room and flipping on the light switch. It's just those little things that people, especially those just millennials and younger, they just take advantage of it. They think that it's just, electricity is just there. Everything's just there. The internet's just there. The Wi-Fi signal or your data on your phone, it's always just there. What do you mean it's not going to be there? So anyway, let's see. Enter the modern day homesteader, someone who embraces self-sufficient living in a rural setting. This kind of rustic living typically involves producing at least some of your own food, generating your own energy by harnessing solar, wind, or water power instead of relying on the municipal electrical grid, reducing waste and incorporating sustainability into everyday life. Or maybe even just digging your own well. I mean, that could be a hell of an endeavor, but I mean, people do it. I guess with the right tools, it's probably not as difficult as it might seem. But the appeal of back-to-basics rural living has surged since the COVID-19 pandemic, fueled by the rise of remote work policies and the growing demand for more space, explains Theresa Lunn, broker and owner of United Country Real Estate, Western Montana Group. Yeah, I'm sure that's expensive. Probably quite expensive. As I've heard, Montana has been. Not really sure why. Every time I've pictured Montana, I pictured it just being out in the middle of nowhere. Like, nobody out there. So, I mean, how expensive could it really be? But apparently it is. Anyway, Lund, who grew up on a ranch and lives on one now, has been selling homesteads, farmhouses, and commercial ranches in western Montana for nearly 20 years. She tells Realtor.com that in recent years, she's seen her clientele shift with the growing number of digital nomads and young families seeking a return to the land. I think a lot of them are from California, though, aren't they? Apparently, there's a big surge in people moving, not just to Montana, but to Idaho, too. And then, of course, there's the obvious ones like Florida and Texas. Nevada was another big one. Or, the great exodus from California during 2020. Quote, "It just warms my heart," says the broker. There are many, many young people that have seen that. There are many, many young people that have kind of seen the light. They're just very wise, and they have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. And they say, "We want to be more self-sufficient." I mean, or it would seem. Could you be self-sufficient without having any access to Amazon, for instance? In the wake of the pandemic, a sizable share of people opted to leave urban areas for rural, off-the-beaten-path communities, offering more affordable housing and a laid-back lifestyle. Yeah, dude, that would be nice. Yeah, just a little nice. A November 2024 report from Fannie Mae showed that mortgage applications for housing in rural areas spiked 80% since the start of the pandemic. Although only a small share of urban residents relocated to rural areas during the pandemic, their influx represented a disproportionate increase in demand for housing in those regions, wrote Kevin Park, housing economist working at the time on Fannie Mae's Economic and Strategic Research team. Even as elevated mortgage interest rates cooled buyer demand in metros, application activity in rural parts of the U.S. remained above pre-pandemic averages, according to Fannie Mae research. Interest in different types of remote areas has fluctuated. Resort-style communities saw an early surge that has since died down, while institution-rich hubs featuring schools, banks, hospitals, and libraries continue to attract house hunters. And that's another thing, living off the grid, especially if you have a young family. You have to take into consideration how they're going to get an education. You're obviously going to have to homeschool them, which may not be a problem for especially those who are dead set on going off the grid. Humans are really good at adapting, especially when forced to do so. You either adapt or you die. I mean, humans, we have a pretty good way for the most part of having the ability to do so, or at least the drive to do so when pushed. But yeah, schools, banks, hospitals. Obviously, hospitals are important. But I mean, there are a lot of people, they live off the grid and they're hours away from a hospital. So, which of course you got to factor in your first aid. And are you proficient at administering first aid? Now, I get having the internet, you can download all kinds of survival books. I'm sure there's probably tons of open source survival material that you can download. I believe there's even a link. I don't know if it's on archive.org, but apparently there's a way you can download the entirety of Wikipedia. Every single article across the entire platform of Wikipedia, you can apparently download. And it's only like a couple of gigabytes or something like that. It's like straight up text. But buried in that, you'll probably find a lot of survival type stuff. But anyway, according to the latest available data from Realtor.com, list prices in the typical rural county grew 64% from July 2019 to July 25, compared with an increase of 42% in the median metro area county. So yeah, definitely increasing, even though off the grid, out in the middle of nowhere, especially if you find property that doesn't have a water source or it's not bordering a water source, you'll probably get it for a lot cheaper. Of course, you're going to have to want to drill for water, I would assume, if you can. I mean, if your property doesn't have any access to water, then yeah, it's probably extremely dirt cheap. Simply put, asking prices may or have grown more than 3 times faster in the typical rural county compared with the typical metro area county. Realtor.com senior economist Jake Krimmel says, the good news for aspiring homesteaders is that despite prices growing more quickly in rural areas, they are still considerably more affordable than urban communities in absolute terms. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. In July, the median list price in the median rural county was $299,950 compared with $348,000 in the median metropolitan area county, a 14% difference. For context, what Kreml calls the rural discount was 25% in 2019 and 21% in 22. In short, quote, in short, there's evidence of prices slowly converging as demand for rural counties has grown substantially, explains The Economist. There are a couple of factors driving this rural boom. The proliferation of remote work and the surge in interest rates are making cheaper places more attractive to budget buyers facing affordability challenges, which I mean, what percentage of Americans are facing affordability challenges? Like what, 80%? Maybe even higher than that. Lunn, the Montana broker and real estate consultant, agrees, saying that she has seen rural properties grow in popularity whenever the economy gets tighter. She also says that the increasing availability of reliable high-speed internet, allowing people to work from anywhere, has been a game changer. Yeah, Starlink. I believe that most specifically. Not sure if that's the only game in town right now, but it probably is. It's the only one that I know about. Many versions of rural living, but it's important to note that rural living is not a one-size-fits-all experience. There are many models of homesteading. They range from a single-family home with all the modern conveniences in a rural setting that's a short drive from a town with stores and coffee shops, to a fully off-grid log cabin miles away from the nearest hamlet, or a spread of land that you have, whether it's a few acres or 100 acres or 1,000 acres. Regardless of what it is, as long as you have a clearing, you can just drop a trailer on it or a prefab home or something like that. Hell, you can even buy that shit on even places like Amazon. Matter of fact, I'll even open up a tab and remind myself to take a look at that. You can buy these kits. You could buy home kits, kind of like a Lego set that you can put together. It's absolutely crazy. Let's see. That's not how it's worded, but I'm sure that's gonna... No, not fucking books. I know Home Depot has some. Home Depot. Yeah, they've got these homes. It comes with all the materials. How do I word this? Maybe just tiny home. That might bring up something. No, come on, get out of the way. Maybe tiny home. Tiny homes. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I'll get back to that here in a second. So, anyway, let's see. She adds that some buyers initially approach her hoping to purchase property that will let them live a fully self-sufficient lifestyle, only to realize they are not ready for it. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot like that, at least not right away, especially in a place like Montana. When winter sets in, it sets in, and you're probably isolated without any ability of going anywhere, probably for months on end. Again, I've never been to Montana. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's reminiscent of like the freaking Shining or something, where you're just completely, what's the word, snowbound or something like that, where you're just completely stuck wherever it is you are. Quote, sustainability and being self-sufficient, those are very relative terms, notes Lund. So for some people, being self-sufficient is growing tomatoes out on their little lanai, and to some people, they want the spread with acres of garden, yeah, which I'm sure requires years of hard work, sacrifice, experience, lack of experience starting out with. You're going to need all the tools, have to learn the fertilizer. Can you make your own fertilizer from scratch, like composting? I'm sure there's probably years and years worth of research, trial and error before you can get to a point where you can plant a few acres of your own garden and have it grow in a good, usable, edible, healthy kind of way and not taste like straight up grass, even though it might still be technically edible. But even the concept of going off-grid, disconnecting from public utilities and switching to self-sufficient electrical and water systems covers a wide spectrum and comes with a steep learning curve, especially for people moving from large metros. Absolutely. Oh man, that's gorgeous. Let's see. Yes, you can do it, but many times I'll have people saying, I want to go off-grid. For one thing, there are all kinds of off-grid setups. Some of them are very good and some of them are not, says Lon. She's found that in many cases, it's best to find a property that is on-grid and then gradually transitioning to an off-grid arrangement at your comfort level. It's actually a really good idea. Buy a property that's already got electrical hookups and maybe even plumbing. I mean, look, plumbing you could probably get along without. Build your own outhouse, dig a deep hole in the ground, that kind of thing. Embracing an off-grid lifestyle prematurely without knowing what you're capable of, both physically and mentally, can come at a cost. The people that want to go whole hog like that, they burn out many times because it is a lot of work. Everybody has their own tolerance. People with young children or a particularly demanding job might want to consider how much time they'll have to devote to growing crops or setting up a hydropower system to generate electricity for their home. Absolutely. That is very true. According to the broker, would-be homesteaders, especially those used to city living, also often underestimate an area's remoteness in their quest for rural living. I'm thinking of one client in particular, and he came from a very large city, and he said, I want the most remote place that you can find on the market. Okay. The broker drove the city dweller more than an hour and a half over rough country roads to tour the out-of-the-way price or piece of property the client had in mind to purchase. Quote, then we'd get back to the vehicle, and he goes, so maybe not quite this remote. Yeah, Home buyers are drawn to far-flung communities for a wide variety of reasons. Some seek more privacy, while others want to put their survival skills to the test. For many families, it's a priority to give their children a well-rounded upbringing away from the constant pull of screens. Look, if you want to give survival skills to the test, and this probably isn't like the best advice for it, but there's something called the Appalachian Trail. It runs, I think, all the way up from Maine, all the way down to Georgia. And there's people that actually can walk that Appalachian Trail. They have to start somewhere around April, I think it is. Maybe you can start in March, maybe if you start in Georgia and you work your way north. But either way, people can get it done within like 4, 5, 6 months or something like that. That would be a good test of your survival skills. Of course, that would be the traveling survival skills as opposed to just stationarily trying out your survival skills. Either way, try living in a tent for a month or maybe a couple of months and see how you can get by and how much it drives you crazy. Because that would be a good way to test your mental fortitude when it comes to living off the grid. Not saying that you're going to be living in a tent when you buy your own piece of property. It's not just living in the tent, it's just living off the grid. Getting by without electricity, just trying to get by without all these comforts that you've grown up with, that you were even born into. Anyway, quote, they want them to be able to have that tactile and all surrounding experience of being able to play outside, being able to grow something of your own, being able to have an animal, and realizing that all the latest whatever fill-in-the-blank TV movies are not worth it, says Lund. Lund recently helped a family of 5 from Chicago buy a 20-acre ranch-style spread in a remote community about an hour from Missoula, Montana, a city of 78,000 people, which also has an airport, hospitals, and an art museum. The agent says the husband and wife, who have 3 children under the age of 5, have been vacationing in western Montana for years, and they just fell in love with the area. Last year, they came out looking for a homestead to buy, but could not find one in their budget. This year, the family was more successful, snagging the sprawling estate for $850,000 for only 20 acres. Kind of sounds like a ripoff, but maybe not today. Again, Montana surprises me. I'd figure Montana would have been like absolutely dirt cheap, but nope, apparently not. The property comes with a very modest home, multiple outbuildings, a garden, grazing land, and even a flock of hens left behind by the previous owners. They are thrilled, Lund says of her clients. There's still a lot of things to do, but they just love it. Since moving in, the family have bought pigs and collected eggs from their hens. They are still planning to buy cattle and horses. And then Lund points out that the buyers did not care that the main house was quite small because the property offered other advantages, including access to a water source, which, yeah, that's kind of important, especially if you don't have anybody upstream. If there's not anything happening upstream, then, you know, the water possibly could even be clean enough to drink, even though I'm sure nobody would ever recommend that, which could eventually allow them to go off grid, having the water source, proximity to good schools, and a reliable internet connection enabling remote work. Again, Starlink. Although I don't know how much it is, but I'll check. Buyers beware, but even with the best of intentions, embracing the simple life can be complicated. Lund says in western Montana, it's often the harsh, snowy climate that pushes newcomers to their limits and sends some running for the hills. There's nothing more powerful than the truth, and you have got to be truthful with people and explain to them that this is going to be a long winter. According to the veteran broker, many city dwellers fantasize about leaving their cubicles behind to live off the land in a place like Montana without realizing the hardships that come with it. For some, the ultimate reality check is a good, strong winter, says Lon. Others manage to find workarounds, such as becoming snowbirds and spending the cold winter months in warmer locales before returning to big sky country for the summer. Yep, I'm sure that is very often the case. I know that all too well, living in Florida with all the snowbirds that come down, and there are a lot. At least there used to be. Surprisingly, like this past winter, for instance, and not too surprising given the whole political climate of what's going on between Canada and the United States, even over the last few years, there's been a massive drop in Canadian license plates in this area where I've been living. And all I can think about is just the tensions between the US and Canada right now. I mean, although that doesn't really explain why that everyday Canadians can't just simply come down and stay wherever it is that they're at. Although the 2 hurricanes we had last fall may have prevented a lot of them from traveling down for the winter. Maybe they had damage or whatever, but I didn't even see probably more than 1 Canadian plate a week, which is like shockingly rare. That's never happened before. Every winter, probably every 2 or 3 minutes in traffic, I would see a Canadian plate. They're all over the place in the wintertime because they snowbird here. Anyway, Montana, it's close up there to Canada. It gets really cold. People travel. They snowbird in the summer. So anyway, yeah, man, off-grid living. I think off-grid living, that'd be pretty cool. Could I handle it? Maybe. I don't know if I would want to for the rest of my life. Why young adults are moving to small towns at the highest rate in a decade. Probably because they just want peace, they want quiet. Although they don't get all the comforts of big city living. They certainly don't. But yeah, young adults, they've been flocking to small towns and rural areas at the most dramatic pace in decades. And it's a trend that's not letting up anytime soon, no? Especially not if it's cheaper, which of course it is. Since the COVID pandemic, internal migration took an unexpected turn with large numbers of younger adults, 25 to 44, flocking to these areas. As a result, they've been fueling a small town revival, according to Hamilton Lombard, estimates program manager of the Demographics Research Group at the University of Virginia's Weldon Cooper Center for Public Research. The 2023 county population estimates released by the Census Bureau in spring of 24 showed that since 20, 2/3 of growth in the population occurred in areas with fewer than 1 million residents or in rural counties. Despite many companies mandating a return to the office, the migration of younger adults into these areas accelerated in 2023. Perhaps the most striking statistic within the 2023 age estimates is the fact that since 2020, the country's small towns and rural areas have been attracting younger adults at the highest rate in nearly a century. Holy shit. Yeah, man, small towns, they were dying. They've been dying since the day I was born. Way back in the early to mid 80s, they've been dying off. And it's not only because factories were shipping off to China and other countries. It's just more and more people, they're born in these small towns, they grow up in them, they graduate from high school, and they want to move on. And most often, they just tend to flock into the cities. So these small towns, man, they were drying up like crazy. There's a YouTuber that I followed. He's since passed away because, tragic train incident, what have you. But he was a train hopper. He would jump on freight trains, and he would travel all across the country during summertime when he just took a summer vacation every year from work, and he'd take a couple months out of the year and he would just travel all over the country train hopping. And his name was Hobe Stobie, I think his name was. Let me see if I can find his channel. Or was it Stobie the Hobo? It's been at least a few years since I've actually watched his stuff. But he passed away, I think it was in 2017, where he was killed by an Amtrak while he was trying to cross some tracks. I guess he got caught up in between 2 train cars. And I think this is him. Yeah, here it is. Hobestobe. Hobestobe. So yeah, he used to travel all across the country. It's a fascinating channel if you like watching something kind of documentary style, something very different. But yeah, he narrates it all himself. It's like 90% of it, it's him by himself. He's got a couple other friends that tag along with him a couple of times, but it's mainly him by himself. But yeah, he would obviously go to all these small towns all over America, from the Midwest to the South to out West, and he would just show these quote unquote downtown areas, where most of these downtown areas were built in like the late 1800s, early 1900s. and most of them just look like ghost towns. There's almost no vehicles anywhere. Most of the storefronts are just empty. They've got for sale signs put in the front window, and they probably have been for decades, just sitting there for sale. Nobody's going to buy any of them. However, with this surge in younger adults moving to small towns, that's probably starting to become more of a thing of the past. Is it across all the states with rural areas? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, you might get places, maybe like Iowa, for instance, maybe small towns in Iowa who've been dying off for decades. Maybe they're not really seeing a resurgence, but maybe they are. I don't know. The large numbers of younger adults aged 25 to 44 flocked to small towns and rural areas following the pandemic. Here's the annual change in 25 to 44 population by metro size. So MSAs with over 4 million metro areas. So big dip in 2021, then it kind of went back up again. Let's see, with under 250,000 or rural is the brown one, or just brown line. So yeah, I mean, it's going up a little bit. It did go up quite a bit in 2021, but it'd be nice if they actually had 2024 data. Yeah, see, this was published in this year. But I get it. The Census Bureau, like, sometimes things are more up to date than others. I mean, they only take the census every 10 years. Not to say they don't do anything for the other 9 years. I mean, they're getting statistics all the time. It's just the entire country doesn't participate in it except once every 10 years. So anyway, this is in stark contrast to the past decade, where 90% of this growth was concentrated in the largest metro areas with more than 4 million residents. Starting in the late 1970s, young adults pursuing well-paying jobs in white-collar industries started fleeing areas with populations of fewer than 250,000 people. People in favor of places like New York City, San Francisco, and Washington, D.C. And by the 1990s, this large-scale exodus caused a change in the population, where many of these areas failed to gain new residents younger than 45. That continued until the 2010s, when migration into larger metros reached its highest point in more than half a century. The migration of young adults from rural to urban areas caused communities to become increasingly unbalanced demographically. Yeah, man, before COVID broke out, like in 2019, 2018, if you look in the heartland, whether if it's like Ohio or Indiana or Kentucky, rural Tennessee, or even Illinois, maybe Missouri, like just any of the flyover states, if you looked for a town that had, let's say, fewer than like maybe 15,000 people, and if you looked at the real estate, it was so absurdly cheap. You can get like a legitimately nice house, like a 3 or 4 bedroom house, 2,000 square feet, built in the mid-century, really huge front porch, just absolute great looking house. Nothing wrong with it, for like $30K, $35,000, $40,000. I'm not over exaggerating. I looked. I did spend time before COVID broke out just browsing around, because just a part of me has always wanted to move back to a small town, because I partially grew up in a small town in Indiana. And it was kind of nice. Actually kind of nice. It was very quiet. Everybody knew each other. Not a lot happens there. But still, the older I get, the more it's enticing it is. Although younger adults in their 20s, I just don't see them being happy there for the rest of their lives. But who knows? What do I know? Anyway, yeah, adults now, times are different now than they were when I was growing up in like the 90s. So all this technology and everything, it's all in our pockets. It's provided from, again, Starlink. It's provided from no matter where you are in the world. You have access to all the social media and all this other stuff. So maybe they could get along a lot more easily in small towns than maybe in years past. So anyway, for example, Arlington County, Virginia, across the Potomac River from Washington, D.C., which saw its population of young adults grow faster than any other county within the nation's 20 largest metros, had 6 times as many younger residents as those over age 65. Meanwhile, in the more rural Highland County, Virginia, along Virginia's western border, the over 65 population was twice the size of residents aged 25 to 44. As the 2010s rolled on, Lombard writes that all the census and economic data were pointing to the age divide between rural and urban areas growing ever wider. See, that's the kind of downtown I'm talking about. It's a main street, and maybe only a half a mile down the road, that's when you start hitting like open fields and cornfields and whatever. I mean, unless you're in, I don't know, like in like a wilderness type area, if you're in the middle of like Tennessee or something, or in Virginia, West Virginia. But yeah, that's my kind of downtown. That'd be really nice. But yeah, these days, maybe not these days, but in recent years, downtowns like this that were built 1800s, 1900s, early 1900s, they were just empty. Nothing there, just empty storefronts all over the place. But in 2020, just as the US, along with the rest of the world, was walloped by the first wave of the COVID pandemic, the demographic trajectory made an unexpected U-turn. During the 2010s, 90% of the growth in the young adult population was concentrated in the nation's largest metros with over 4 million residents, of course. But since 2020, 75% of the growth in 25 to 44 demographics has been seen in cities with populations of less than a million or in rural enclaves. And America's millennials and Gen Z are strategic about which rural areas they choose to decamp to, favoring those regions that have top natural amenities. Interesting. Natural amenities refer to region-specific characteristics like an area's climate, landscape, open spaces, and bodies of water, including lakes and oceans. Very interesting. Colorado's remote Chaffee County, located in the Rocky Mountains and boasting a high USDA natural amenity score, has seen its younger workforce double compared with the national rate over the past 10 years. Meanwhile, counties in southern Appalachia's coal country, which are low in natural amenities, have experienced a dearth of youth migration. So decline would be in the orange. That'd be over 2%, or dark orange, like red, basically. Yeah, the reddest. And then orange is declined 0 to 2%. And then yellow, flat, or grew up to 2%. And then like the lime green, it grew from 2 to 4%. And then solid green, 4 to 6%. And dark green grew over 6%. So yeah, I mean, a lot of growth up in North Dakota, Montana, like way up in the top of Montana too. A lot of growth up there. Even in Wyoming, like most of Wyoming's grown. Not much of it has subsided. A lot of Idaho subsided. That's interesting. Definitely California. Like, look at the East. Like the Eastern, like the whole Eastern US. It's like almost completely declining. In decline. And then you're looking like here in the Rocky Mountain time zone. You're just getting like a large growth of 25 to 44-year-olds moving out that way. Very interesting. Florida's got a couple of spots, but it's kind of a mixed bag down where I live. So this is change in 25 to 44 population from 2020 to 2023. Oh, okay, hold on. So I misread this. So it is 25 to 44-year-olds from 2010 to 2013. That's the decline from 2010 to 13. Now this is from 2020 to 2023. Very different. Wow, man, that's like night and day. Look at this. Wow. Yeah. Especially Tennessee. Look at Tennessee. Boom. Big explosion. Same with Texas, especially like around the Dallas area, the Houston area. Big surge in people. I'm sure a lot were from California, I would imagine. Look at Idaho, dude. And see, that's what I thought. I thought Idaho was experiencing rapid growth. It wasn't back then. It is now. Oh, is it now? Holy cow. Same with the Western Montana, big time growth. Which is interesting because back then, like Eastern Montana was experiencing heavy growth, but now it's in decline. That's kind of interesting. Like Indiana's seeing growth like in virtually every single county, with the exception of what looks to be one. Like only one county where it declined. Like every other county, it's in growth, including the county that I lived in when I was a kid. So yeah, Florida's growing, which of course it is because Florida was open during the pandemic, with the exception of like 2 or 3 months. I mean, we still locked down for a couple of months. People like to blow that off like we didn't, but yeah, we did. Yeah, Ron DeSantis, he closed the state for a couple of months. Then he did the whole like 30% in restaurant bullshit. So anyway, Zoom towns are here to stay. During the pandemic, when remote working was enforced, the concept of Zoom towns became a phenomenon. These remote suburbs and rural areas soon saw an influx of city workers ridding themselves of their cramped apartments and homes in favor of larger and more affordable living. Many companies, including JP Morgan and Google, have since reversed their pandemic-era work-from-home policies, but despite that, Data analyzed by Lombard shows that many workers have been able to retain what he calls geographic flexibility. In other words, the growth of young adult populations in most rural counties was accompanied by a surge in incomes, suggesting that many were able to hold on to their remote work arrangements in the post-pandemic years. And what's more, economic data suggests that the former city dwellers turned rural residents have not just been sitting in Zoom meetings all this time. From 2019 to 23, IRS applications to launch new businesses in the smallest metro areas of rural counties shot up 13% faster than other parts of the U.S. Not surprisingly, remote areas with top natural amenities such as forests and lakes experienced most dramatic increases in new business activity. Change in 25 to 44 population from migration by metro size. Yeah, there you have it. There's the graph from the 1970s going all the way up to the 2020s. MSAs with over 4 million is the gray. And then the brown or orange is the MSAs with under 250,000 or just straight up rural. So yeah, it's been even declining since before the 70s. I mean, still in decline from the 70s to the 80s, and then it fell rapidly in the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and look at this, man. Boom! That is just wild to me. That small town America is growing again. And what's crazy, look, if you're at least, I don't know, 30 years old or older, that's just wild to hear that. Because our entire lives, anytime that you hear about small town America, that's all they talk about is how it's in decline. Small towns are dying. Everybody's just moving into big cities. Rural America is just, its days are numbered. And, how is it going to be saved? Well, not only the advent of the internet, but also China dropping a freaking coronavirus, infecting the entire world and forcing everybody to lock down. That really blew up. But if not for the internet, it would have been probably just still in steady decline. And I think, like I said, I think Starlink's playing a big part in that. Having the ability to use high-speed internet from anywhere in the world. Because living in a rural area, that doesn't necessarily mean, even if it's in America, you're not necessarily going to have the craziest high-speed internet, especially if it's ground-based. And frankly, that's what's always kept me from considering looking into more rural areas. Although in the Florida Peninsula, even in rural areas in the Florida Peninsula, I'm sure getting ground-based internet's probably not going to be an impossibility. I'm sure it's all over the place in the rural areas too, which I am strongly considering in the future. Being that I live in Pinellas County, it's the most densely populated county in the state, almost twice as densely populated as the second most densely populated county in the state. So, yeah, there's nowhere else to build. So, needless to say, things have gotten quite expensive, especially since COVID happened. So, always got to weigh my options. I don't know. Maybe in the future. Maybe I'll get me like a travel trailer or something, even though that's a really stupid idea with regard to hurricanes and whatnot. You don't want to live in a trailer in Florida. So anyway, Starlink pricing overview as of October 2023. Apparently, it's not been changed. This is kind of where it stands. It's operated by SpaceX, offers satellite internet service, which we all know. Residential service, standard home internet. So you get common plans for households and whatnot. You get 50 to 200 megabits per second download, and then 10 to 20 megabits per second upload. Dude, that's kind of bad. It's not very good for upload. With latency around 20 to 40 milliseconds, that's pretty good. For satellite-based, 20 to 40 is pretty good. That's about what you'll get on any VPN. If you browse the internet on a VPN, 20 to 40 milliseconds, that's pretty standard. At least in my experience. But hell, for most people, unless you're live streaming or maybe if you're gaming or something like that, whether if it's 40 milliseconds or if it's like 200 milliseconds, you're not going to notice any difference. Not really that much of one anyway. So hardware cost, a one-time fee, you're going to have to pay $500. That is a problem that's going to weed out a lot of people from getting Starlink because your average everyday American, they don't have $500 just sitting in a savings account in case an emergency were to arise. They would have to put said emergency on a credit card or get a loan from somebody or ask to borrow money from whoever who does have $500 to their name or more. So, yeah, I would assume most people who are getting Starlink are probably putting this thing on a credit card, probably. But anyway, it includes a dish, router, and cables.
In some regions or promotions, it's discounted to $2.99, only in select US areas. So for urban or best effort plans in high demand areas, it might be $2,500. Fuck. For a premium kit with better performance. Man, come on, y'all. Monthly subscription. Here it is. $120 a month. I thought it was $80. Maybe it was like the first year it was on. Maybe that was like during the promotional period where they were trying to get everybody hooked up to it. But I thought it was $80. But nope. It's $120 now. In the US and in most countries. So if you live in Canada or if you live in parts of Europe, you might get a better deal. It includes unlimited data, but speeds may slow during peak hours in congested areas. That sucks. So if you live in an urban area like myself, living in St. Pete, probably getting Starlink probably isn't a very wise idea. I mean, I pay like $40 a month for my internet, and my internet is plenty fast enough. And I've got, how many computers? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've got 5 computers connected to the internet, including the one I use to watch TV whenever I occasionally watch TV, movies and whatnot. And 2, 3 smartphones, maybe 4 sometimes. So anyway, I got a lot of stuff hooked up to the internet, and there's never any issue, no latency, no glitching out. It's always been perfectly fine. And that's only $40 a month. So probably not going to be getting Starlink unless I were to move out in the country or whatever. $5.99 for roaming. Dude, I would have to insist on getting this. Look at this. They do offer Starlink for RVs, boats, or travel now. So I don't know if it works as you're in the process of moving. So if you're driving on the highway, can you set up a Starlink kit inside your RV or your vehicle? Can you slap it on the roof, like tie it to your roof rack or something and access Starlink while you're in motion? I don't know. Not sure, but that would be pretty dope if you had something like that and you were able to take it on the road with you like that. That'd be cool. Monthly, $150 for 50 gigabytes of data, so you're not getting unlimited. But you could get unlimited, but it's going to be slower. Or $250 for full unlimited mobile use. Damn, that's kind of expensive, man. Like elitist prices. Business starts at $250 a month for basic, and then it goes up from there. 1 terabyte private. But anyway, that's the gist of it. That's Starlink for you. So it's doable. People who live out in the middle of nowhere, they can actually get along. Here, I got a couple other things to look at. Matter of fact, I just thought of, let me see about, actually, let me try to open up. I don't know if it'll let me do this, but let me try this. But where should I search out in the world? I've always liked Tennessee, or like the Kentucky, Tennessee region. Where did that other browser go? Okay, that's the one I thought. Maybe not. All right, let me try this. All right, Zillow. I haven't even searched in quite a while. But last time I searched, I was looking like around the Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, like that kind of tri-state area. Let me see. Look, it's wooded, it's forested, a lot of wilderness, a lot of water out there. I mean, it rains relatively all year round there. So it doesn't seem like too bad of a place to kind of gauge as to how much places are costing out here. Let's see. For sale. Yeah. I don't know, any price really. Let's see. 45 acres for 55 grand. And land for sale in Harold, Kentucky. Where's that at? Here it is. Here's the... Oh, no. I want to go back. Yeah, there it is. There's a couple of bodies of water, but not where this is. But does it have... It looks like it does. It might have road access. Oh, yeah. I see it right here. Yeah, it's like right up along the road. It's all wooded. 45 acres for 55 grand, dude. I mean, you're probably going to have to see, there's kind of a dirt road, I guess. The real question is there enough level ground to build something? Maybe here, maybe this is why they're showing this spot. Maybe you could level it out enough to maybe put something there. I mean, it's kind of cleared out over in that area. Very hilly. Okay, yeah, there you go. There's the road. I think there's a little shed on the property. For sale. Will it get... No, it probably won't get any bigger. So I'm going to make it a little larger, but... Yep, off the beaten path. Get out of that. Back to search. And then, of course, they've got the fancy places, 625,000. That was 43,000, 16 acres. I don't know. Can you actually... I wonder if you can... Like, it... Yeah, here we go. No, not a water view. I'm just curious to know if you can actually... Like, the amenities. More filters. Yeah, lots and land. That's really what I'd be most interested in looking at. I mean, I guess houses too. Why isn't the map showing all the dots? Isn't Zillow supposed to show you where all these properties are located on the map? I mean, what am I missing here? Maybe I have to be signed in. All right. 48 acres. Less than 50K. I mean, that's got a lot of open space. Very nice. On a road. I don't know, maybe it's prone to flooding. There's probably a catch. It's probably some sort of a catch here. A little old shed on there on the property. There's a utility pole. So I don't see any power lines connected to it, but I mean, that seems like a good sign. Fallen rocks. Yeah, okay. All right. Maybe that's the catch. Maybe you might be in like the movie Black Sheep, living in your little cabin and this massive rock just smashes into it out of nowhere. You got a church down the street. All right. That's cool. I'm a little bummed out that it's not showing all the dots, though. Remove boundary. Yeah, let's try that. Oh, there we go. All right. Yeah, I'm just a little bit extremely ignorant when it comes to using Zillow. I honestly have not been on Zillow in like 5 years. It's been a long time. Wow, man, where to start? Hold on. All right, there's Lexington. Here's the border. I mean, yeah, man, I'd be like all about this area here, like somewhere around here. This is like off the beaten path. 450,000. Damn, dude. Woo. A little expensive. Although I could adjust the price. I don't know. Let's go cheap. Let's go real cheap. 150K. There's still a lot of places though, man. Look at that. A lot of places. 137 in Pikeville, Kentucky. 137,000, 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,000 square feet. Like on the side of a hill. Like corrugated metal roof. That's kind of nice. I mean, this isn't off-grid living, of course. I'm not necessarily looking for off-grid living. I'm just looking for just rural. Dude, that'd be a pain in the ass, though, if it snows. I'm sure it snows there. I'm sure it does. I mean, I'm not too familiar with Kentucky, but I'm sure it probably snows there. How much would that mortgage be? Like 1,000? Maybe, probably not even that. It'd probably be like 7. Well, yeah, given the interest rates today, it's probably going to be pretty close to 1,000. That's not bad. I mean, could be worse. Could be way worse. That's only 150, 1,625. 89,000, 1,200. That's a good starter home for you. 3-bed, 1-bath. That's the house I'm in right now, is a 3-bed, 1-bath. 89K. 84,000. Damn, that's an old house. 3-bed, 2-bath, 3,000 square feet. Yo, it's got some room. Hello. Welcome home. I don't know about that gate. That's a little sketch. Weird, like iron, like these bars on the side. Kind of weird, but welcome and be blessed. Wow, look at that view. Oh, smokes. Old school. Yeah, fixer-upper. I mean, it doesn't look abandoned or anything. Fresh coat of paint. Uh-oh. Maybe just a little bit more than just a fresh coat of paint. I need a little bit of ceiling work done. Yeah, there's definitely going to be a catch with this place. If it's over 3,000 square feet and they want it for that cheap, there's probably something substantial like termites or some shit going on. Hey, what the hell is that? Vines? Interested in touring the home? I mean, kind of, but not from where I live. Kind of far away. 84.9. Great investment property. You buy it as is. Well, there you go. Better get a hell of a home inspector to look at it. But look at it. It's like in this little small town, Pikeville. I've never heard of Pikeville, but it's got like a little river running through it. I'm sure it's like a very nice, quaint, peaceful little town. Been on Zillow 72 days. How nice, man. That's, yeah, I was gonna say, okay, so this is Pikeville right here. So these are all gonna be in that Pikeville area. 35,000, 12 acres, a lot. Now, how many? But yeah, I think that's probably what you'd have to be most concerned with if you're buying just open land. Does it have a water source? Does it have direct access to a highway? Which I'm sure all properties more or less do. Or otherwise, how are you going to get to your own property without going through somebody else's? So it's got to have access to some road in some way, shape, or form. But also the potential for utilities. Like if you do want to run power to it, how close are the nearest power lines to where your property is? And how many miles potentially will they have to run to get electrical to your house if you ever want to be hooked up with electrical? And I'm sure there's like way many other things that I'm not even thinking of that you'd have to consider when it comes to buying something off the grid like that. 5,000, 0.25 acres, lot land for sale. Just enough space to put a house. What would it be? This one, I'm assuming the thin strip. Yeah, little thin strip. Only 5K, dude. I could actually buy that. That would be very interesting. They only have 2 images. Come on, man. That's it. I'm curious to know what the hell this weird looking thing is there in the middle. Yep. Very interesting. 1/4 of an acre. Half an acre for 14. 140, 32.9. 10 acres for 32. Is that water? That is water. I mean, it looks like standing water, though. Only 2 images. That sucks. 5 acres for 40,000. That's kind of out in the sticks. But more than kinda. A lot of grass. That's a good thing. Old barn. I don't even know if that's you'd really even consider that to be a barn. Yeah, nice. Some open land with a couple buildings on it. That's 5 acres though. But at least it's been cleared. For the most part. 19 acres for 40. 1 acre for 26. Why, man? Gotta have water access or something. 17. Lot in land. That's all cleared out. In Herald. Where's that one located? Just 4. Oh, yeah, okay, there it is. It is. It's like right up against a water source. Or like a little creek. I mean, it could be like just drainage, maybe.
Probably not something that you could necessarily probably draw water from. 150 for 90 acres. You get 90 acres for 150K. Very cool. Very cool. I mean, that's just in one area. That would just be one area that I'm interested in. Like all of these dots, all these dots are under 150,000 in this area. Yep, they're all over. But yeah, I mean, that would be where I'd probably be interested in living. I mean, like further down here, I mean, if I were to live in rural Florida, it'd probably be like around this area, like somewhere around Okeechobee, maybe. Maybe south of like Lake Placid. Damn, there's a lot of spots around here that are cheap. Lots. 110,000 for 10 acres? Really? All right. 36.5 for a half an acre. Give or take. Hey, dude, these are all houses or are these just lots? They're probably lots. Yeah, they're all lots. Open lots. Why is that so cheap? 0.29 acres, it's on a corner. In Lake Placid. Yep, you could put a house there. Oh, you'd have to clear it. That's why. Got trees, man. You'd have to clear all the trees. That wouldn't be cheap. I guess you could do it yourself, but it'd probably take an entire summer. Or winter. Actually, not summer. Fuck summer. I don't want to do it in the summertime. You gotta do it in the wintertime. 19.5, man. You could put a like a prefab home or something. I don't know, not out of the realm of possibility, for sure. I mean, look, that one's only 17K for a lot. 10,000 square foot lot. Okay, so it's pretty small, but still. And it's right near Lake Placid. May not be the, I mean, I don't know really anything about Lake Placid. I don't know if there's a lot of crime going on in that area. I know there's some rural areas in Florida where it's just like oddly crime riddled or crime ridden. I mean, I don't know, 150 for 5 acres. Very interesting. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look up some of this on my own time, but yeah, man, there's definitely opportunities out there, even to this day in 2025. Yeah, here's some items that I was looking at. Yeah, there's the typical solar stuff. And like My Patriot Supply is one of those websites where they've got a bunch of off-grid stuff. Solar generators, survival food. I mean, I wouldn't be all that crazy about survival food necessarily, but survival items, emergency heating, stoves, cooking, water filtration. But there were some, I don't know if they're going to show it on here. I was looking on my phone earlier, just checking out some of the things that they had. There was like some water, it was like a reverse osmosis, little portable handheld carrying kind of thing that was only like $50 that you can soften your water with. Yeah, that's all just like power generation and all that. Good grief, almost $12,000. Yeah, those batteries, man, those things ain't cheap. Not cheap at all. But yeah, if you're living off the grid, I mean, I guess. Oh yeah, this is what I was talking about right here. Reliable water storage, APEC 4-gallon residential, purified water, continuous supply for residential reverse osmosis systems, suitable for average to large families. $41, 4.7 out of 5 stars. Portable power for anywhere. $1,000. You're living off the grid, man. It ain't cheap. Well, I guess it depends on how comfortable you want to live off the grid. Of course, they've got like those little gas stoves, those little camping butane stoves. You've got like these little wood stoves. You even do like hot tent camping. Yep, good stuff. There's even something over here on Amazon. Actually, wait. This thing. No, that's too much. There was another one that I saw. It might have actually been on Amazon. It's like this little wind turbine that you can set up and it generates power, and it was really cheap. It was like $40. This was something I'd never seen before. A portable shower bag, 5 gallons. Even comes with like the little shower head that's attachable.
Even has a temperature gauge on it too. For camping, hiking, traveling, beach swimming. 4.0 stars with over 1,000 ratings. Yeah, definitely something that would be useful. I could definitely see. Not sure how long it would last. It's probably not something that would probably last you for years on end. Which I'm sure people who live off the grid, they've probably got contraptions that you could do for practically free that would do the same thing that this thing would do. Get like an old 5-gallon bucket and like poke a few holes on the bottom or some shit like that. Survival Bible. But like I said, you can go online and download survival guides for free. You know where to look. Camping fans. Of course, the typical LED light setups and all that. Like, everybody knows about all that stuff. Marshmallow roasting kit. Really? Ponchos. Citronella candles. No, dude, if you're going to live off the grid, you're just going to have to get used to the mosquitoes. It's just going to be a part of your life. Mosquitoes. I'd be more worried about ticks than anything. That'd be what I'd be worried about. Amish Survival Bible. 65 books in one. That actually might be a good read. Fruit and veggies. 30-year shelf life. I tried food 30 years old. Why not? Be a fun experience. See if this will kill you or not. Does it taste like botulism? I don't know. I don't think botulism has a taste. What do I know? All right. So I think I'm going to wrap up with this. So I was looking at these a while back. So when you're looking at these properties, these open lots that I was just looking at on Zillow and just browsing around different like parcels of land, even like the small, just like individual lots, like even like a half an acre or whatever. Like I said, in Florida, it's probably not a good idea to get one of these types of homes if you're dealing with the possibility of a freaking hurricane or a storm. Because, you know, I mean, maybe something like that. I doubt it, but maybe. Maybe you might have a somewhat better chance riding out a storm in one of those, but probably not. Some of them are getting expensive. I didn't see them that expensive. That's only 420 square feet, and they're asking 100 grand for that. It probably comes with all the appliances. Everything's all built in. But I mean, look at this shit. Like, you can actually buy, and you'd have to build it yourself, but it comes with all the materials to build this thing. And it was, what, less than 20? I don't know what's up with Home Depot. It's not my computer. Home Depot's website is slow. Slow as hell. Maybe because I'm incognito. Maybe that's why. But it's $14,646 for all of it. I mean, yeah, looking at that, it's probably going to be really small. It looks small from that point of view. It's doable if it's just one of you. Maybe two. Maybe two people. Probably do it. But some of them, yeah, they've even got the porch. It's said even with floor. So some of these don't even come with the floor. So you'd have to, I don't know, I guess put in a concrete slab or something. Well, not or something. That's exactly what you would most likely have to do. Yeah, man, they got a lot of these. There's 29 pages worth of these things. Little tiny homes. Yeah, and Home Depot, probably not the best place to be looking at them for price-wise. I'm sure there's probably somewhere on the internet where you can find these even cheaper. Frame up now. Free ship to store. You can ship a whole house to the store. You go pick it up with what, a friggin' semi? Or a big-ass U-Haul. Which, of course, you'd probably would have to consider having to hire electricians to maybe wire up the electrical. But maybe all that's included. Maybe it's just like plug and play kind of deal where it's all built in and you just have to connect wherever the connectors are and everything's just hooked up and you just have to have somebody come in and just attach it to the electrical grid maybe. I mean, it's not bad. Not bad. It's going to be small, but that's why they call it a tiny house, because it's small. Do they got any others here?
I mean, it looks sturdy. May not be. I mean, for all I know, that's not wood. It's all plastic. Maybe it is. I don't know. But yeah, there's stuff out there. Stuff to make it work. It's not going to be easy. Probably going to be a lot of frustration getting one of these things built. And probably a lot of people may end up hiring somebody to do it for them. But it's doable. It comes with all the stuff needed to build it. Or unless you want to clear everything off the land and just do it all yourself and just go from there, start from scratch. Do what Abe Lincoln did. Everybody else that just lived strictly off the land out in the wilderness. That would be quite an interesting life, and it looks like more people are exploring that every day.